How's it going, guys? My name is Zach with the Movie Castle, and today we're going to be talking about Tales of the Walking Dead. This is Season 1, Episode 3, and this one's entitled D. I guess before we begin, I should apologize. Sorry about the automotive backdrop. I've been really busy, and this is just sort of the time I have to record this. Anyway, this episode is from August 29th, 2022, and directed by Michael E. Satrazemis, and stars Samantha Morton and Lauren Glazier. And this is the Alpha origin story episode. Well, not origin story as in that whole bit with the husband origin story as sort of Alpha's last chance to accept humanity, and instead she goes down the path of the Whisperers. Now, I do want to say, with this episode, you know, this is the first one that really ties in a whole lot to the actual Walking Dead show, but they do enough to keep it still anthology, and that's really the thing that would bug me, is if this was Walking Dead supplemental material instead of an anthology show. And I feel that if you haven't seen the show, you can still watch this episode and appreciate a lot of it. It is better if you have seen the show and you understand who Alpha is and how this will relate to the Whispers later and the implications of what she's learning and feeling here. But at the same time, it still can be watched on its own, which I feel like if we go farther than this, if we go to the point where they can't be watched on their own, that's really the point where I would have a problem. So I like the tie-in. The tie-in isn't bad. It's just the show's got to stay anthology and not supplemental, you know? I guess let's go ahead and do a brief, non-spoilery plot synopsis. We open up and we're on a steamboat, which is always a cool setting. Love boat stories, and hey, a very Death on the Nile steamboat here. And we see that everyone here is pretty proper and upper class, and they're surviving the zombie apocalypse on this boat. And actually, when you first tune into this episode, you wonder if the zombie apocalypse is even going on, just because everybody here is doing so well. But we get this woman and her daughter. This will be Alpha and Lydia, but this is before she's Alpha. She's just D right now. And they're new recruits. They're new people on this boat, and they're not, 100% fitting in. D/Alpha isn't really getting into this lifestyle, and she'll get criticized. You should try harder, you should look more proper. And they also notice that the daughter seems to be scared of Alpha, which is giving them cause for concern. So she's just not quite fitting into this new culture. However, eventually someone goes missing. They think he got drunk and fell overboard. But Alpha kind of suspects something, and as the episode goes on, you'll see that she's beginning to think that there might be a mutiny of some sort about to happen. And of course, people aren't going to believe her, but of course, she is going to be right about this. And also, throughout this episode, I should mention, Alpha is narrating this, so you get her in her accent, and she's sort of going through what's going on in her head as all this stuff is happening, so that is a sort of nice element. It is narration, but it ties into the character, it gets in the head better. I did think that was pretty cool. But anyway, I should mention one thing that I said when I covered the last episode. The last episode, Blair/Gina, a very funny episode, and then the one before that, the Terry Crews one, that one was funny as well. And I said, is Tales of the Walking Dead going to be one of those mandatory humor series? And then I get this episode, and no, this is definitely not humor. So yeah, if you were tired of the funny, jokey style, that is not here, Like I said earlier, this is also the first one to tie in super directly. The last two, there may have been a few little references, but this one ties in 100% with the series, and it lets you strengthen and expand, yet it still does good enough to stand on anthology. And like I said earlier, if we get more of these, we'll see how that goes. But also, doing an Alpha origin story, we kind of already had one with the father, but this is her rejection of humanity, and we get to see an extreme case of humanity in this episode. We saw previously how the animalistic lifestyle that she and the Whisperers lived, how that was bad and cruel in many ways, but we get to see here why she rejected the human lifestyle, and we get to see sort of the cruelty and extremism of being bound to rules, having to do stuff a certain way, and we get to see how that can be bad too. So we get to see why Alpha rejected this, which I do like. You know, there's a few scenes where it's like the bartender's getting after her for not fitting in better, not trying harder at her appearance, and no one's saying, hey, look, she was just on the run with her daughter for a really long time. Give her time to adjust. But no. There are standards, there are expectations, and you also get cruelty based on the rules, where the first guy that goes missing, they think he got drunk and fell overboard, and they go, well, we have to maintain a schedule, and he's probably already dead anyway, so they just leave him, you know? And you get to see that cruelty when you get a system that people make and no one's allowed to judge or question or go outside of that system. So that was interesting as well. Gives Alpha something to rebel against, you know? Now, that being said, what I think is one of the weaker elements with this episode is the plot structure. You know, I'm a sucker for a good, clean plot structure, and sadly with this one, it's a little bit off, you know? We open up, and I'm like, a murder mystery aboard a boat, Death on the Nile style, but then it kind of changes. And the thing is, you know, you get the opening murder mystery. It's intriguing. You want to slowly unravel this case. You want to solve the mystery. You know, that's really fun stuff. But then that's not really what this episode's about. And quite quickly, we change into a second scenario where it's sort of this hostage situation thing. And okay, they're a hostage situation. I won't spoil their motivations, but that's relatively interesting. And we get to see people betray and backstab each other trying to make it through. Okay, this is an interesting enough situation, but then once again, we move on from that. You know, it doesn't linger on either of these two situations long enough, and then we get into sort of the Alpha origin story section, which I won't spoil too much of, but it feels very different than the other two sections, you know, and it also goes on for a really long time. And personally, if I were doing this episode, I would structure it really differently, because it feels like it goes through these first two sections too quick, and then we get to the third and we just kind of linger there. But it really should kind of be the opposite. It should be where most of this episode is murder boat mystery. Give the mystery time to breathe. Give Alpha that whole, you know, detective figuring stuff out, but no one believes her or trusts her because of who she is, but she's right. You know, you could do that. Give us a good murder boat mystery, and then when that's all done, the finale should be this whole hostage situation. That should be the end of the episode, and that shouldn't be near as long. That should be the ending. And then let the Alpha origin stuff just kind of be a teaser at the end. You know, I think that would be the best way to set this episode up. But yeah, we get kind of a bad plot structure here. But whatever, you know, it still is cool to see the story of Alpha abandoning humanity. That is an interesting story. You know, it ties in, but it's still anthology. You get a good narration over the top, seeing what's in her head, and, you know, you gotta love a boat story. So, overall, it's a good, interesting episode. It's darker and serious, so that means we don't have mandatory humor. And I thought it was interesting, but that being said, definitely could have been better if it had been more of a mystery and they'd stayed on the boat longer and stuff like that. Overall, a good episode. Not the best thing ever, but it is cool to see Alpha again. Anyway, to everyone who's watched so far, thank you for watching. To everyone who's liked and subscribed, thank you. You really are helping the channel out. I'll leave a relevant playlist on the bottom. This should be my Walking Dead playlist, where you can find my reviews of the first 2 episodes of the show, and I'll try to get to episode 4 really soon. Anyway, have a good day. I'll see you guys again very, very soon. Walking Dead playlist on the bottom. First 2 episodes, and then if I get to 4, that will be there later after this. Anyway, have a good day. See you guys again very, very soon. Walking Dead playlist on the bottom. Have a good day now.